What's something you wish you enjoyed but just can't get yourself into? Story 1. Sushi. I so desperately want to like it, but I can't taste much of anything except the seaweed, and the texture is really off-putting to me. And every time I tell a sushi lover this, they're like, "You just haven't had the good stuff." And I get all excited because maybe they're right. Then I have what they call the good stuff, and it tastes like seaweed to me. I've even just eaten sashimi. That is just a texture in my mouth. Edit. First of all, thank you to everyone telling me to not give up on sushi. I try it every few years with frustratingly little progress. To those suggesting sushi with no seaweed, I've tried it. From the straight sashimi to every other type. The texture and general lack of flavor just don't do it for me. And thank all of you saying, "Seriously, you haven't had the good stuff yet." If LA, New York, and Seattle don't have the good stuff, no place does. I just have a dumb tongue, apparently. Love you all, though. Thanks for trying to better me. Story 2. Anime. The only anime I have ever truly enjoyed is Inferno Cop. All my friends, without exception, love anime. I just have to sit and hate it all, though. In answer to anyone that will possibly ask the obvious follow-up questions, yes, I have seen _________, and I also disliked it. This answer applies to most animes people usually bring up. Except Perfect Blue. I haven't tried that one yet, and I want to. Just to see it, it's as fucked as people say. Edit. ITT. People who are sure that I lied when I said that I've tried watching a lot of animes. Yes, I've tried watching the anime that you're going to suggest. I'm old. People have been pushing animes on me for nearly 30 years. Yes, I disliked the experience, even of your mostest favorite-est anime. Moving on. Story 3. Black coffee. I've tried many times over the years. I just can't do it. My parents both did it all my life growing up. My friends do it. I work in a firehouse, a place where coffee is king. But no matter how many times I try, I just can't get into it. I can get through it if there's enough cream and sugar, but I am impressed by those who can just drink it black. Story 4. Going to the gym, working out. I get extremely bored and feel like I am wasting time. Not to mention I feel like a lot of it isn't required in my life for what I do or have done in the past. I have no reason to become Superman or get a bigger physique. That'll require some special expensive clothing. If I can walk, run, play with my dogs, do physical labor, swim, ride bike, etc., I have no reason to put my body through 6-7 hours of working out every week. Story 5. Video games for longer than an hour at a time. I have ADHD and anxiety, and something about living out a fictitious planned path on a screen just makes me restless in an hour or so. I feel like I should be doing something in the real world, and then I go sit on the couch and scroll on my phone for 5 hours. ADHD makes no sense sometimes. Story 6. Watching sports. My family loves to watch, especially football. When we all hang out together, I'll join in and try to show some interest, which they appreciate, but they know it's not really for me. I'm a guy, so I often have strangers bring up a recent game and try to discuss it as if I'm inherently a fan, which is awkward, and I always feel like I'm disappointing them by not being into it. Story 7. Guitar. I've owned a few for years. I can play a few chords and pick a few songs. But I'm not even close to being a player. Every time I start getting more serious about it, something else happens that just takes my time away, and it starts to feel like a chore to force myself to practice every day. Then eventually I slack for a few months, then do it all again. Story 8. A massage. I've never had a proper massage, and I don't think I ever will. Side note, I'm also the most tense person alive. I just don't like people touching me, and I don't like the idea that someone's job is to touch me. I've never had anyone even rub my shoulders for more than 5 seconds. I don't like it. I wish I did because people seem to really like it. Story 9. Sleeping enough. Ever since I was a kid and had nightly nightmares, I've tended to keep myself up most of the night rather than sleep dream. In HS, I had more all-nighters than I can remember. And to this day, I pretty much never get enough. I'm scared I'm on the highway to Alzheimer's at this point, because I've had bags under my eyes longer and more consistently than I've had secondary sex characteristics, as well as pretty much every other milestone I can think of after learning to walk and talk and shit. I'm hoping that getting more sleep now will help, but it also feels like my brain is Swiss cheese compared to what I was capable of processing and remembering years ago. Story 10. Seafood. It looks good, and people talk about how good it is. It just tastes like shit to me no matter how I've tried it over the years. I've tried the best places, the freshest seafood restaurants in Charleston, San Diego, Seattle, along the PCH K1 US 101, fresh-caught trout and bass, etc. It's just inedible nastiness, and I wish I could enjoy it instead. Story 11. Dancing. I've never felt comfortable doing it. I feel awkward and uncoordinated, the only physical activity that I feel that way with, which makes it even worse. And I've heard all the advice and platitudes about not caring, people not judging, blah blah blah. I just never enjoy myself when I try, so I usually don't even try. And then I look like an asshole at every wedding I go to, and my beautiful wife is having a blast and I'm still a 40-year-old wallflower. I've even tried taking secret dance lessons and just hated it. I also think there's some stupid stigma about people needing to dance. It's like the only thing that people judge you for not doing publicly if you hate doing it. Story 12, Lord of the Rings. I love to read, I just don't like fantasy. I tried to read it several times in high school before the movies. I tried to read it again when the movies came out. I've tried once again since then. I actually walked out halfway through the first movie because I hated it so much. I just don't like it. Just don't, and I'm a total nerd. I have a Starfleet Academy flag flying in my yard to beacon other nerds, and they all love Lord of the Rings. I just don't. Story 13, reading. I used to consume at least 2/3 book for months when in high school. I remember I've read the entire low TR version, a super huge book always in my school bag, and finished it in a couple of weeks. Now I can't read anymore because I am extremely burnt out by life. I've lost the capacity to concentrate on something and force myself to read at last some comics, manga, because it's just easier. I hate adulthood. Story 14, Harry Potter. The books came out when I was in 6th grade. I tried the first 3 and got so bored I gave up and went back to reading Animorphs and Redwall LOL. I love magic, fantasy, British humor, all that crap seems to work with my personality type, but nope, not my jam. Even the movies bored me. I saw the first 2 in theaters and fell asleep during the 3rd, which made my friends mad, so I really gave up after that. Story 15, hosting people. I always thought I'd be the family house that hosts every holiday. Always having people over for dinner, etc. No matter how hard I try, I really don't like it. It's too much pressure worrying that everyone is having a good time and enjoying the food. Not to mention I'm very particular about my things and where I sit, etc. So having people over drives me crazy. Story 16, socializing while sober. It's easier to do online but not as easy. I'm not a very social person, but I know I need to be. Human interaction is good for my brain, I know, but I have a lot of trouble with it. Not only am I autistic, but I got a late start on socializing. I spent a lot of time isolated as a kid. Then once it got to a point where I was able to have connections with other human beings, I didn't know how to. People were pushing me to, and that made it even more difficult. They were telling me to make friends, but not how to make friends. My ideas of human interactions were mostly learned through books, and I could only do scripted conversations. I know that part of a conversation is being expected to talk, but I mostly just listen, and that is apparently awkward. On top of that, my anxiety makes it so I am replaying every part of the interaction in my head. I'm constantly trying to plan how I'll respond, and I'm convinced that I said the wrong thing, or I was bad in some way. I'll think about that interaction for years. Around 21, I discovered that when I'm drunk, I'm more relaxed, and while I'm running through scripts in my head, or interactions I've read about, I'm not all that worried about doing it wrong. I don't have overwhelming anxiety, and usually the other person is also drinking, so they don't notice if I am awkward. Socializing makes me feel like a normal human being, but the only way that I can do it is drunk. Like, well, into a 1/5 of vodka type of drunk. I know it's unhealthy, especially because socializing aside, I have a problem with alcohol/drugs. I want to be a sober socializer, but it's daunting. Story 17. Myself. Haven't been able to enjoy life in 7 years after being assaulted. I want to love myself, but the assault made me feel very worthless, and it is super difficult to be me anymore. I want to be happy. Sometimes I really am, but most of the time I hate my body, my brain, and my thoughts. I feel like I've lost myself and I cannot be fixed, because then my love of life raped me, and I can't trust that anyone will love me truly, because he traumatized me in many ways. I want to live life and experience things, but the constant thought about that trauma impacts me so deeply, I think no one will ever understand. I was underage then. It makes it so much worse. Feels like I'm not even a human anymore, just a shell trying to keep this body alive. Story 18. My microgreens business is gardening properly. I had a few good years, but 2 hailstorms destroyed my outdoor garden 2 years in a row, and I ran into mold and gnat issues indoors. I've since scaled down everything, but I have thousands of dollars in growing equipment and over 100 pounds of vegetable seeds. Just chilling, waiting for my lazy ass to get things going again. I normally am already planted and have my garden up and running, but this year, I'm very much behind on that task. Story 19. Warm weather. You'd think someone living in Canada would like it, but no. My part of Canada snows like twice a year and the rest is rain or heat. Combine the fact that my room has no ventilation, and you can go from the hallway that feels cool to the absolute death oven that is my room. I have a box fan going and everything, but my room is miserable when it's not winter. Funnily enough, cold weather is arguably worse because my heater only heats a couple centimeters in front of it, about an inch for you Americans. So really the answer is all weather. I can't get into weather. Story 20 dogs. I've had a lot of pets, even looked after a turtle for a short amount of time. No snake or extraordinary pets like that, but I had a lot of hamsters, mice, gerbils, and we had cats growing up, and currently I have a cat and a horse. Most horse people in the stable also have a dog and seem happy with that decision, but I just can't understand wanting an animal on you 24/7. Because let's face it, most people who leave their dogs home during work aren't very good owners. Their dog would want it very differently. I am very thankful that my cat wants snuggles and then usually leaves afterwards. Also, as much as I like my horse, I'd never want him to be unwell because I'm not there. He has his own friends and we're training partners. If I'm not there, he's enjoying the free time on the field and his heart doesn't break. I also have kids, and maybe that's what's weird to me about dogs. They're toddlers who will never grow up, and I'd hate being stuck with a 2-year-old for life. Story 21. Sports. Any sport. I just don't give a shit and don't see how people care about any sport. Am I supposed to like the local team because that's where I am? Or am I supposed to like just individual players and obsess over them? And why am I supposed to like something that has no impact on my life one way or the other? I don't hate sports. I just don't get why people like watching them. I played soccer and basketball as a kid and had fun, but I can't see watching them as entertaining. I play video games and don't even get why people watch other people play video games. Story 22. Every hobby I try to take up. I wasn't raised with hobbies. I know people with hobbies and envy them. I can picture enjoying a hobby, but the startup feels like a steep hill to climb. And in the reality of the hobby, it always feels like I'm trying to convince myself I'm having a good time when I'm not. I know one guy in particular that has a couple solid hobbies and he's fully into them, and I explained this struggle I have and asked him about his experience, specifically whether he's just one of these people that tried something once, maybe even at a young age, and loved it without doubt. He told me that he treated his hobbies like a job at first, or exercise. You decide you want to do something, you don't do it once or twice and give it up BC. It's not clicking. When you plan it, and the day and time comes, you don't make excuses. You force yourself to get past the steep hill of starting up. Get past the doubt when you want to say, I don't like this, I'm going home, and you commit to it like it's a chore. After you've given it the chance it deserves, it might not be for you, and you move on. But at that point, you've challenged yourself and learned about yourself, and you've made an informed decision. And others stick, BC. It's not the fiction you dreamed up in your head that you end up experiencing and enjoying. It's the development of expertise you're proud of and the eagerness to advance further that keeps you in it. For example, I hear about fly fishing and I like the way it sounds. I can picture myself enjoying it. I want to go from that moment of visualization to being in a beautiful setting with all the right gear, expertly fly fishing. I get started and realize that getting there is a steep hill to climb that will require investment of time and resources, patience, failure, humility, and it starts to feel like a chore instead of easy pleasure. So I throw in the towel and go back to wishing I had a hobby, having never known what it's like reach that visualization I initially had. Story 23. Dancing, like swing or salsa. I watch people who dance and they're all spinning around and smiling and laughing, but I just can't get into it. Even hearing the step-by-step instructions, I just can't get how to internalize the coordination part of it, and the bar to entry to get to the point where I'm enjoying myself just seems too high. And lessons are crowded and hard to see. To get to the point where I'd get into it, I'd feel I'd need 1. A proper dance class which layers on lessons, 2. Daily practice by myself, including taking video and shit, 3. Semi-weekly outings to go dancing, poorly, and 4. A very kind and patient female friend who can go with me to social dancing on a consistent basis to give me pointers. It's too much and not enjoyable. Story 24. Exercise and cooking. I'm fat, unhealthy, and riddled with small-scale health problems which are entirely solvable by exercising. Except, I have despised every group sport I have tried, and my ADHD is being a bitch when I try to do anything by myself consistently. Besides, the only sports I enjoy are archery and bouldering, which are too far away and expensive. As for cooking, I have very little sense of taste or smell aside from savory umami, and consequently, I don't enjoy eating anything. I like the challenge of baking, but my flavors are not the best there either, or so I have been told by my victims. I would love to enjoy both of these things. I see how much joy it gives. I'm envious of the artistry and skills. And maybe most of all, it would make my partner happy. Anyone commenting along the lines of just try, just start, just do. I am. Every few months, I get the impulse to start again, and a few weeks later, it will be like nothing changed. I've been doing this pattern for almost 2 decades. Nothing sticks. Story. 25 TV shows come to mind. Game of Thrones when it was all the rage. I wish I could care about any of the characters. I felt like I missed a major pop culture moment, and more recently Succession. Everyone was obsessed with it, and I couldn't watch. I don't know what about it too. I loved the clips and bits, but I sat down to watch the first episode and 10 minutes in it felt like I couldn't commit to it. Of course, there are other shows like This Is Us or Gilmore Girls and stuff, but it isn't like I wish I liked it. It's just that I don't care about it. It's fine. Would be nice to binge, but it is fine. Story 26. I was invited by some friends, gained through my boyfriend, to join a Tolkien society. It's not full-on LARP, but nearly so. They were partially being nice. I was super depressed, and a lot of my own friends had moved or just had babies, so I was also lonely, but also partially wanted my boyfriend to join later on. I just couldn't get into it. I gave it a good try, and there were so many nice and wonderful people in the group that I wish I could have enjoyed it, but I just felt awkward. My inherent shyness that I'd worked hard to overcome refused to be contained. Instead of helping me come out of my shell and make friends, I retreated further into myself. At least I can laugh a little at myself. I'm more awkward and weird than a bunch of hardcore nerds. Story 27. I don't like cooking that much, and I wish I were able to become one of those stress cleaning people. I have a friend who can every so often just go on a cleaning binge and purge all her stuff. And meanwhile, I can't even get the urge to move the laundry from the washer to the dryer right next to it. I've tried getting into making my bed daily, only for my ADHD brain to determine it's easier to sleep on top of the covers and just use a smaller blanket instead and never need to make the bed. Then I just gave up. I